What would you do if a dog ran into a police station, barking uncontrollably, as if trying to warn everyone? That's exactly what happened one day, and no one could have predicted what it would lead to. What followed next would shock everyone and save a life. You won't believe how it all unfolded. Imagine this. You're walking into a quiet police station. Everything calm and ordinary. Then, suddenly, a dog bursts through the door. It's barking frantically, its eyes wide with panic, as if it's trying to tell everyone something. This isn't just any dog. It's a dog in distress, desperate for help. But what happens next will shock you. This is no ordinary story. It's a true tale of how a dog's bark saved lives, a story no one could have expected. It was just another quiet afternoon at the police station. Officers moved through their usual routines, answering calls and handling paperwork. The air was filled with the hum of mundane office work, the steady rhythm of a department that had seen it all. But then, without warning, the peace was shattered. A golden retriever burst through the entrance, its fur bristling and its eyes wide with urgency. The dog's bark echoed through the station, sending a ripple of confusion through the officers. It wasn't a stray, and it certainly wasn't here for a routine visit. Something was very wrong. Officer Thomas was at his desk when the dog first burst in. His eyes snapped up, his pen halting mid-sentence. For a moment, he thought it might just be another lost dog looking for a home. But then, the dog's frantic barking filled the room, and Thomas knew something was off. He stood up slowly, eyeing the dog, whose fur was matted with dirt and who was now circling the front desk, barking nonstop. "Hey, easy there," Thomas said, his voice calm but firm, hoping to quell the animal's panic. But the dog didn't stop. It was almost as if it was trying to tell him something. The officers around him glanced over, confused but intrigued. "What's it want?" one of them muttered, but no one seemed to know. Thomas crouched down, offering his hands slowly, but the dog didn't calm down. Instead, it turned and began barking toward the door. Thomas was starting to feel uneasy. The dog wasn't acting like any stray he'd seen before. It wasn't the usual curious wagging tail or playful barking. This was different. The dog's barks were sharp, insistent, almost as if it were trying to communicate something urgent. He watched as it paced back and forth, whining with frustration. Every time someone approached, the dog would dart away only to turn and resume its frantic barking. Thomas stepped forward, trying again to calm it down. "What's wrong, boy?" he asked softly, his hand hovering just above the dog's head. But the dog wouldn't stop. With one last glance, the dog darted toward the exit, turning its head to bark once more at Thomas, then back toward the door. It seemed to be beckoning him. Thomas exchanged a puzzled look with his partner. This wasn't normal. The dog wasn't just barking. It was trying to lead them somewhere. Thomas watched the dog's every move with growing confusion. Something wasn't right. He had seen many dogs brought into the station before, but none had acted like this. As the dog paced near the door, its eyes locked onto his, and it barked again, louder this time. Thomas felt a chill run down his spine. "Where is it trying to go?" one of the other officers asked, clearly puzzled. It was then that Thomas noticed something. The dog wasn't just aimlessly barking. It was leading them somewhere. The dog looked directly at him, then at the door, then back at him again, as if urging him to follow. "Wait a minute," Thomas said, his voice a mixture of realization and concern. "It's trying to show us something." He glanced at his partner, Officer Garcia, who nodded, his brow furrowed. It was a gut feeling, but it was growing stronger. The dog wasn't just lost. It was trying to warn them about something. Without another word, Thomas motioned for Garcia to follow. The two officers hurried to the door, and the dog darted out ahead of them, its barking now frantic, its body trembling with urgency. It was as if it knew exactly where they needed to go. Thomas and Garcia hurried after the dog, whose barking had reached a fever pitch. The animal's movements were frantic, darting in and out of the alley behind the police station, its tail lowered in a sign of distress. It was as if the dog knew exactly where to go, leading them down the narrow, dimly lit alley. The officers exchanged uneasy glances. The sound of the dog's barking echoed off the walls, growing louder as they moved deeper into the alley. And then, just as Thomas began to think they were wasting time, the dog stopped abruptly. Standing at the edge of a dumpster, there, lying motionless on the ground, was a man. His face was pale, his body twisted awkwardly in a way that suggested something had gone terribly wrong. The dog stood over him, its nose pressed against the man's hand, whimpering softly. As though trying to awaken him, Garcia rushed forward, kneeling beside the man. "He's unconscious," she said, her voice tight with concern. "But he's still breathing." Thomas quickly reached for his radio, calling for an ambulance. The dog didn't leave its side, still whimpering and looking up at them with eyes full of fear. The realization hit hard. The dog had found him, and it had led them right to him in time. The ambulance arrived minutes later, and the paramedics worked quickly to stabilize the man. Thomas watched in awe as the dog stood close by, its body tense but unmoving, its eyes never leaving the man's side. It was as if the dog knew its job wasn't done yet. The paramedics were quick, assessing his condition with practiced hands. One of them looked up, her face grim. "He's been beaten badly. Whoever did this left him to die here." She shook her head, clearly disturbed by the sight. "But if it weren't for this dog, we might not have found him in time," the officer nodded, glancing down at the dog. The animal had done more than just alert them. It had saved a life. As the paramedics prepared to transport the man to the hospital, the dog followed them to the ambulance, reluctant to leave his side. Thomas felt a pang of respect for the animal's loyalty and courage. "Good boy," Garcia murmured, her voice soft with admiration as she crouched down to pet the dog. The animal didn't respond with a wag of its tail, but there was a quiet understanding between them. The dog had done its duty, and now it was ready to rest. The ambulance arrived minutes later, and the paramedics worked quickly to stabilize the man. Thomas watched in awe as the dog stood close by, its body tense but unmoving, its eyes never leaving the man's side. It was as if the dog knew its job wasn't done yet. The paramedics were quick, assessing his condition with practiced hands. One of them looked up, her face grim. "He's been beaten badly. Whoever did this left him to die here." She shook her head, clearly disturbed by the sight. "But if it weren't for this dog, we might not have found him in time," the officer nodded, glancing down at the dog. The animal had done more than just alert them. It had saved a life. As the paramedics prepared to transport the man to the hospital, the dog followed them to the ambulance, reluctant to leave his side. Thomas felt a pang of respect for the animal's loyalty and courage. "Good boy," Garcia murmured, her voice soft with admiration as she crouched down to pet the dog. The animal didn't respond with a wag of its tail, but there was a quiet understanding between them. The dog had done its duty, and now it was ready to rest. The man was stable, and the dog's mission was complete. But Thomas couldn't shake the weight of the moment. The way the dog had acted, so determined, so focused. It was as though it understood the life-or-death nature of the situation. The officers had always known that dogs had keen instincts, but this was something else entirely. This wasn't just a random act of rescue. This was a warning, a call for help that only a few had understood. As the officers returned to the station, the dog finally relaxed, its body less tense, as if the burden had been lifted. Thomas couldn't help but smile, a deep respect forming in his chest for the animal. "You're a hero, aren't you?" he whispered. Later, the police shared the story with the department, and the dog was recognized for its bravery. That day, a life was saved, not just by officers, but by an unlikely hero with fur and for paws. The dog had shown them that sometimes the greatest heroes don't wear badges.